It seems like the most successful e-commerce owners are moving in the same direction, building an in-house creative team exclusively focused on finding new winning ads. And hear me out, I believe this is the best investment any e-commerce store can make in 2025. In this video, I'll show you exactly how we built over 40 in-house creative team in the last 3 years and helped our clients generate hundreds of millions of dollars in 2024 alone, without spending tens of thousands of dollars on content shootings, without compromising on quality, without losing control of their data, without paying extra commissions on their ad spend, all while building a valuable asset for their future exit. If you don't know who I am, my name is Alessio and I'm the CEO and founder at 99ads.com, a performance agency focused on delivering new ad creatives weekly to some big players like True Classic, Pact, Michael Todd Beauty, Exter, Pod Company, and more. If your ad results are unstable and can't scale profitably because you're not testing enough ad creatives every month, I'm about to share with you our winning creative system, which is the proprietary system we use internally to deliver over 2,500 ads per month. This is the same system dozens of e-commerce stores use to build, manage, and scale their in-house creative team to hundreds of new ads per month. If you stay till the end of the video, I'll give you access to our entire framework for free, so you have all the information you need to start building your in-house creative team today. Whether your goal is building your in-house creative team, finding more winning ads, or just slicing your cost per winner in-house, you'll definitely want to watch this video. Let's get started. Here's the problem. Most e-com owners are approaching ad creatives completely wrong. And the reason why they do it is because they give up and then they believe they only have a limited amount of options at their disposal. The first one is hiring an expensive agency that takes forever to deliver and most of the time, let's be real, delivers shitty ads. Number two, trying to figure everything out internally without a proven system to follow, which usually leads to no good. Number three, wasting years looking for that one mythical unicorn candidate to turn everything around by themselves, which is never gonna come. And number four, and worst of all, is becoming completely dependent on an agency or on an external vendor who's gonna basically hold hostage your business growth and ask for fat commission in return for it. Now, let me ask you something. When was the last time you looked at your creative department and thought, this is exactly how a successful e-com brand should operate? If you're like most of the e-com store owners I talk to every single day, you're probably just getting a handful of ad creatives each month while watching your competitors pump out hundreds of ads every single month. Or you're seeing your team recycle the same old winning concept idea again and again and again and again without any sort of innovation. Or you're struggling to keep your team trained and updated to the latest trends of the market, and you see them spend a lot of time doing something that now AI would do in a matter of seconds. Or you're wasting time and resources and money into people just to see them walk away once they become an asset for your company. Look, here's what nobody in the industry wants to admit. The way most e-com stores approach their creative department is fundamentally broken. And the reason why it's broken is that most e-com stores treat their creative department like a talent problem. They think if they just find and hire the right people, everything will fall into place. So what do? They headhunt the best creative strategists. They poach creative strategists from their most successful competitors. Or even worse, they hire an agency, they work with them for a while, and then they try to poach their best talents through some recruitment agency. Now, for a while, this is gonna work. This might even work. This might get you some winning ads, might get you a Grand Slam winner you can reiterate on for 6 months or 12 months. But then what happens? The results become unstable again, the creativity runs dry, the costs keep climbing, and you're right back where you started. Why? Because you're trying to solve a systems problem with a people solution. Again, you're trying to solve a systems problem with a people solutions. And this is what we discovered after seeing hundreds of millions of dollars spent on our ad creatives. Running a successful creative department isn't just about having talented people, isn't just about getting great content to put in your ads. It's not just about gathering accurate data to make decisions. It's about having all three working together in a systematic way. The real problem isn't that you can't find good people, isn't that you can't create good content, isn't that you can't gather the data, the accurate data that you need. The problem is that you don't have a system that brings all these elements together. And this is what I'm gonna give you in this video. A proven system you can implement yourself starting today. A system that turns average talent into high performers. A system that produces winning ad creatives like clockwork. A system that uses data to constantly improve the results you get. And finally, a system that allows you to anticipate changes in the market. This is exactly what we built with the winning creative system. So, this is the system. It's as simple as it is. I got a decade of experience managing people, which is not a lot. I understand for some people it's always relative. But if you manage a lot of people on a daily basis, you tend to learn a lot and you tend to see, especially if you're a good observer, you tend to notice quite fast what works and what doesn't work. And in my experience, what I notice is that people don't like systems if they feel like these systems are a burden to them, if they feel like they slow them down. So for that reason, when we create systems, we try to make them as simple as possible so that they help people deliver their work. They help people execute on their responsibilities. They're not just a drag that people have to deal with every single day. So when it comes to the system, we have four main parts of it. The first one is the input. And the input when it comes to the creative department are people, content, and data. Then you want to take all these inputs and run them through your process. The process includes workflows, processes, and protocols. Then inputs go through the process and you get your outputs, which in this case are weekly batch, new content, and innovation. Finally, you get all your output through the feedback part, which is where you analyze the results, you identify the bottlenecks, you look for environment adaptation opportunities, and then you remap the entire process between the last output and the next input. And this is how every single week your creative department should operate. Now, this is incredibly simple, but I'm gonna give you exactly how we manage the people, how we manage the content, and how we manage the data. So let's start with the people. People are the foundation of any system. And over the years, we refined this input into a proven 7-step process to find, manage, and retain good people. Now, the 7 steps of the process are sourcing, screening, interviewing, hiring, training, managing, and retaining. Now, each step is crucial, and skipping even one can lead to costly mistakes, and believe me, we've tried. Our winning creative system is built on people because there's no system without people. And here's something that most e-com owners don't realize. In e-commerce, you can literally make tens of millions of dollars with just a couple of people, with just some part-time employees, part-time assistants. And this creates an interesting dynamic, I think probably for the first time in history, where you have incredibly skilled business owners who are incredibly skilled at running their business efficiently, but who are not too skilled when it comes to people. And then when they want to grow past a certain threshold, that's where the need, the demand of people becomes huge from their business. And that's when everything falls apart and they have to learn real fast. Now, in the last 3 years, we built over 40 full in-house teams for ourselves. We helped dozens of e-com stores build their own. We made every hiring mistake in the book. And we wasted hundreds of thousands of dollars between bad hires and opportunity cost. And yes, we are strong advocates for AI and all the great things it can do in our space. We invest heavily in AI research and development every single month. We have a full in-house team working exclusively on AI to make sure that our licensing partners get the latest regarding AI applied to ad creatives. But here's the reality. As of 2025, you cannot run a creative department without people. So the question becomes, how do we find the best people for our creative department? And this leads us to our first principle when it comes to people. Abundance attracts talent. We don't even start screening candidates if we don't have the right amount of candidates yet. The way we create this abundance is through the sourcing step. Now, let's get into it. This is pretty exciting for me. So, this is the first time I'm delivering this publicly, and I'm making it public. So it's quite exciting for me, and I hope you're gonna see this as a treat. Now, when it comes to sourcing, there are three main variables you wanna make sure you take care of the right way: the job title, the job post, and the scorecard. Now, the job title is incredibly important, and it's kind of sneaky in the way it works because it seems like it doesn't really play a big role. And this is where, for example, there's one interesting case study I put here of one of our licensing partners who was struggling to find a good hire, right? And they were looking for a creative innovation architect. What the fuck is that? And guess what? They really needed a video editor. They just needed a video editor. And when we changed the creative innovation architect into video editor e-commerce ads, they got right away 127 qualified applications in 5 days. So this is the importance of the job title. You want to make sure that your job title is clear and attracts the right people. Now, once you attract them through the job title, you want to maintain them attracted and curious about your job opportunity with the right job post. And you want to make sure you add into your job post the seniority you're looking for, the level of experience, the type of experience, the location, and the salary. And then in the scorecard, you want to include responsibilities and KPIs. This is what the person is going to do on a day-to-day while working in your company. Once you have the job title, the job post, and the scorecard clear, you want to pick your method to create abundance. Now, you have three methods at your disposal. You have inbound, outbound, and freelance platforms. My favorite one is probably inbound because it's where you get the most abundance. You create a LinkedIn job post. This is my favorite. You run ads on it for 5 days. And you do this following our SOPs in the creative system, in the winning creative system, and you get a bunch of candidates. And then through those, with all those bunch of candidates, you will almost certainly find the gem if you follow this entire process. And that gem is what you need to create the best system, the best creative department for your company. Now, two more options are Facebook groups and LinkedIn job posts, like normal ones. And then you have job platforms like Monster. Outbound is also very interesting, and lately we've been using it quite a lot. This includes LinkedIn headhunting and asking for referrals. So LinkedIn headhunting is quite clear. This is something that's becoming more and more of a trend, unfortunately, because I believe people have weird misconceptions when it comes to headhunting, but we can talk about it in a future video. Let me know if you're interested in the comment section, and I will be more than happy to record it. But basically, headhunting consists of reaching out to people you know are qualified for the job. These are the most likely to be a good fit for your for the role you're trying to fill, and you simply reach out to them and try to hire them. Then referrals is probably one of the most common ones, but the way we do it is probably different because we see most of the good candidates coming from our own internal team. So rather than asking for referrals to our competitors, to our circle, we ask our in-house team. And obviously we have a lot of people, and a lot of people can know many more people. So that's understandable. But I would highly recommend you ask your own creative strategist, hey, do you know video editors by chance? Do you know graphic designers by chance? Do you know copywriters by chance that are in the space? And this is incredibly helpful. And this is something that we are slowly starting to squeeze the right way. Then the third one is freelance platforms. Here, my favorite ones are Upwork, Online Jobs Philippines, and Fiverr. Is this the best method? Probably not, if you ask me, because these people usually tend to look for more jobs in sometimes in a kind of a like dodgy way, where they have one job that's a full-time job, but then at the same time they have another full-time job, so it's not really clear. And also they have a very high hourly rate simply because they're not used to working full-time since they are in a freelance platform. But you can still find the gems, especially if you're in a rush and you want to fill that role very fast. This is a great way to do it. But anyways, once you pick the right method, you can also pick more than one, obviously, depending on, again, how urgent it is for you to fill out that position. You need to execute on the SOPs for a couple of days and then ask yourself, is the volume of candidates I'm getting good enough? Yes or no? If it's too low, then you want to go back to the job title and redo it again. Ask yourself, how can I make this more clear? How can I make this more attractive for the people I'm looking for? Then you rerun your volume question and you ask yourself, so is it still low? If it is low, then you want to do the same with your job post. You want to make sure that your job post is attractive to the right people. Now, if after redoing your job title and your job post, you still have low candidates, then you need to ask yourself, are my expectations good enough? So is the seniority level I'm looking for matching the salary I'm offering? Is the level of experience that I'm looking for actually an option in the current market? And once we realign our expectations, we want to check out the pre-screening quality. So based on the initial form, how's that quality? Is it low? Then if it's low, we want to revisit the scorecard and do the same thing. And then if it's good, we want to move on to the screening phase. Now, the screening phase is where we start reaching out to our candidates and we ask them to do our first screening test. So very important before moving into the screening step of our people input is, have we met the volume we were looking for? If not, we need to keep executing. Depending on the position, we usually look at a minimum of 100 to 200 candidates. That's a lot of people if you've never thought in these terms. Back in the days, we used to be happy with 5 candidates and we kind of had to force a decision into one of those 5 candidates. And obviously this led to bad hires, lots of money wasted, lots of time wasted. And I don't want you to be in the same situation if you're building your own creative department. So first of all, make sure you meet your volume. This is very important. Now, if you meet your volume, you want to reach out to the candidates. When you reach out to them, the first thing you want to ask them is, first of all, to confirm their interest, and second, to provide a timeline in which they can join our company. Now, it's very important to share your timeline as well, just to make sure that their notice period or whatever they're doing fits with your requirements. Once they confirm their interest and they provide their timeline, we want to send them a screening test. Obviously, you want to prepare it first and you want to make sure it's a role-based test. So you want to give them enough questions and tasks to make sure that at least on a premature level, they know what they're talking about when it comes to that specific role. You send the screening test, you give them a clear deadline, which is very important because you only want to work with people who are able to meet deadlines. And then you ask yourself, I'm happy with the pass ratio on the first screening test. If the screening ratio is too high, then you might want to screen a little harder. You might want to make sure that your screening test is a little harder because otherwise it's not doing its job. It's not screening, right? It's not filtering out bad people. It's just letting everybody in. If it's low enough, then you want to ask yourself, how's the quality? Is the quality low? If it is low, you want to identify the bottleneck. So you go back to the sourcing step, to the previous part of the screening step, and you want to identify the bottleneck. Specifically, it's a candidate's problem. If it is, then you want to go back to the scorecard. But then if it's a teachable skill, you want to ask yourself, do I want to teach this skill? Yes or no? If yes, you want to share those screening tests with the senior, who's going to be the direct report of the candidate. If not, you want to just go back to the scorecard and make sure that we improve it just so we can source and screen more people at scale. Now, if we get the approval from our senior, we move on to the interviewing phase, and obviously we book the first interview. If not, we want to review the assessment ourselves and see if what the senior doesn't like is a non-negotiable for us, or if it's not. If it is, then we discard the candidate. If it's not, then we book the first call and we move on to the interviewing process. Now, one thing that tends to happen is that these senior people have very high standards for multiple reasons. You still want to make sure they understand this is the screening test. They're not even talking to people. So if there's a little bit of a doubt between good and bad, you just want to let them in and talk to them and interview them. You don't want to lose a good candidate because you don't want to interview them and you don't want to hop on a first call. If it's a bad candidate, you will figure it out on the first interview. Now, once you meet the volume, you want to book the first interview. In the first interview, we want to assess logistics, experience, and soft skills. Now, on the case study, you will find specifically what I mean by, let me just go here, what I mean by logistics, experience, and soft skills. Once you go through that interview, you want to ask your recruitment person, your recruiter, your whoever is going to take in this call, depending on how you structure your company, you might be the one taking this call. And you want to ask yourself or that person, do we approve this person? Yes or no? If yes, we book a second interview. If no, we review the recording and the notes and we try to understand if what we don't like, again, is a non-negotiable or not. If yes, we discard a candidate. If not, we move on to the second interview. On the second interview, we want to assess the role-specific knowledge, the performance thinking, and possible lies or incongruencies compared to the rest of the process, basically, compared to the initial form, the screening test, and the first interview. This is more of a subtle way to assess if the person we're talking to is actually legit. But it's always interesting if you spot the opportunity to double check something that they already said in a previous interview or in the screening test. You want to make sure they still confirm it. This is kind of more of an advanced thing, but I would highly recommend you keep an eye on it. Now, after the second interview, usually the second interview, you want to make it with the person who's gonna be their direct report, and you want to get their approval. Now, if you don't get the approval, again, review recording and notes, ask yourself if it's a non-negotiable. If yes, discard the candidate. If no, or you get the approval, then move on to the final practical assessment. Now, this is kind of a controversial step because it's not always possible to ask for a final practical assessment. Why? Because sometimes the market is too hot for certain positions and you can't really tell them, hey, this is a 2-week paid trial. Or you don't have time to wait to fill out the role. So there are many reasons why the practical assessment sometimes is not the best thing. Also, if somebody is like a real senior with a lot of experience, they will not be too happy about doing trials. However, every time we did the final practical assessment, every time we got a good hire. And this is as close as possible to what they will be doing on a daily basis. So there's nothing better, if you ask me, to really assess if this is a good candidate. There's nothing better to get them to go from theory to practice, to test their team communication skills, especially if there are people that are going to join a creative department. Every single day there will be a deadline, there will be something to do with another person in the department, and you want to make sure that they are able to communicate with these people efficiently. And also you want to see the execution level. Are they delivering just because they have to deliver, or they really want to over deliver, or they really want to go the extra mile to show you that they're the best candidate? Those like softer things are very important, if you ask me, especially at this stage of the recruiting process. Now, do we get an approval after the practical assessment if we went through it? Yes, then we move on to the hiring step. If no, again, review recording and notes, ask yourself if it's a non-negotiable. If yes, discard the candidate. If no, then you might want to move on to the hiring step. Now, hiring step, it's probably my favorite. Simply because with experience, I learned that most of the time, my gut, my instinct is right. This works for me, and this also works for the other people in my company. So the first thing I do after watching all the interviews, after watching the practical assessment, after watching everything, is asking my gut, is like, am I comfortable hiring this person, or I have some doubts for whatever reason? If I do have doubts and it fails my gut check, then I want to identify those doubts. I want to make sure I take some time to identify those doubts and then book a third call, a third interview with the candidate and address those doubts genuinely. No agenda, no structure. Hey, here are my doubts. I believe whatever. Why do I believe this? What do you think? Like, I can't really point my finger at the problem, but this is what I feel. Like, I can't really tell you why. Can you please help me negate this doubt? Can you please help me eliminate this doubt from my mind so we can move on to the hiring process and we can onboard you and we can start making insane ads altogether? If this person is genuinely interested in taking the position and is generally confident your gut check is wrong, then they will probably help you process those doubts the right way. In that case, you will be able to do your gut check again. If it fails again, you can probably discard the candidate. I would, at this point, discard the candidate. But if they pass and you're comfortable hiring them, then you want to prepare your proposal. And the proposal must consider, first of all, how you want to hire this person. Is this going to be a 1099 contractor or a W-2 employee? Are you going to hire this person on a salary? If yes, what is that salary? Or what is the hourly rate if you want to hire them on an hourly rate for now? And what are the bonuses this person can get? And finally, the benefits package. Then you want to send the proposal, and in the proposal, you will also include the 90-day plan. So what happens in the first 90 days. Then you want to include their KPIs. The KPIs we will monitor on and we will judge them upon during the probation period. And then you want to explain them how the probation period works. Then if they accept the proposal, we want to move on to the onboarding phase. But if they don't accept it, we want to ask them why they don't accept it. And we want to ask ourselves then, is this a non-negotiable for me or not? If it's not a non-negotiable, then we want to meet them in the middle. If it is a non-negotiable, we want to explain why and explore if it's a non-negotiable for the candidate to get whatever they're asking for. Now, if they accept, again, move on to the onboarding process. If they don't accept, you got to discard the candidate. And at this point, it really sucks. I mean, losing a great candidate just because you can't find an agreement in terms of salary or whatever, it sucks. It's incredibly annoying. So if you can avoid that, do avoid it. Anyways, once the onboarding process is ready, you want to make sure that the expectations are clear. So you want to make sure this person you're hiring understands what they're signing up for, and you understand what are their expectations as well. So within the onboarding process, you want to include the training material, the communication cycle, and the onboarding direct report that this person is going to have to talk to. You start the onboarding process right after. You track the time to value. You ask them for the first month to give you an end of the day report every single day, or like send it to their direct report. And then finally, you want to monitor the KPIs, and you want to share your thoughts constantly. You want to constantly tell them, hey, I like this, I don't like that. Hey, I don't like this, I really like that. Do more of this, do less of that. And this is something that really helps them, especially if their direct report does that. Now, the probation period at some point is going to end. Usually it's 90 days, depending on the position. You can play with it, you can make it shorter, you can make it longer. But if they pass the probation period, you got a new hire. So congrats. Every time you hire the right person, it's a great milestone, especially if you're building a creative system. So if that's the case, congrats, nice work. But if they fail, you want to ask yourself, is this anything teachable? If not, you want to discard the candidate. And again, this really sucks to fire somebody after the probation period, but when it happens, it happens. If it is something teachable, you want to prepare your PIP. PIP stands for Performance Improvement Plan. And if they pass it, then you want to hire them. If they don't pass it, you want to discard the candidate once again. It's very sad when you discard a candidate. I really hate that. But anyways, this is how we manage the people process. Obviously, in this case, we're not sharing the training, managing, and retaining people, which is more part of the process section of our system. So this would fall under workflow and processes. But regarding finding the right people and hiring the right people, this is it. This is what we follow, and this is what we followed to build over 40 in-house teams for us, and help dozens of e-com owners, our licensing partners, build their own in-house team. Now, if this is the first time you're building your in-house creative department, you might be thinking that this is it, that now you know how to find the right people and you're good. You're going to find a way to make your creative system work. And this is what I thought after we perfected our hiring system. But man, was I wrong. While finding amazing talent is amazing, not knowing how to train, manage, and retain them is basically exactly like building a leaky bucket. And we discovered this the hard way when 3 of our best creative strategists left within the same month, even though they were hired through the perfect system, and that they simply hit the wall and they wanted to leave. The worst part is that their replacements, also hired through our bulletproof system, face the same exact challenges. And this is why our licensing partners get access to all the 7 pillars. Because finding great talent is one thing, but maintaining and keeping their performance super high, and training them properly on the latest trends, and getting them committed to your brand for the long haul, that's a whole different game. And yet, mastering the people component is just one part of the inputs. Like we haven't even touched processes, outputs, and feedback. We're here. And there's much more to that. So when I thought, yes, now I have the perfect system, I'm going to hire the perfect people, I'm done, I was completely wrong. I was absolutely wrong. And you want to think of your creative department, your creative team, as a 3-legged stool. Without one of the 2 legs, either content or data, even the most perfectly managed teams will struggle to deliver consistent results. And again, here in the case study, you will find many more examples coming from our licensing partners. To read this entire case study and get it, just head over to the description box and download it. It's free. You just have to opt in your email address and it's free. But anyways, let's move on to inputs. Otherwise, this video is going to be too long. Now, Let's talk about content. Remember when I said we made expensive mistakes? Now, out of all of the mistakes with the content, we outdid ourselves. And we're talking about 25 grand content shoots for our clients. So paying as an agency 25 grand to do a content shooting for a client. A full-blown physical studio we built here in Lisbon, Portugal, with a permanent crew on a payroll to shoot ads for our clients. In other monthly expenses that would make a Hollywood producer blush. And the most embarrassing one is that I once personally insisted with the rest of my team to rent a red camera just for a simple product shoot. And when I talk about overcomplicating things, this is it. Like, shooting with a red camera is probably the most stupid thing you can do when it comes to performance marketing. You're moving like a massive monster, and then you need to move files around that are incredibly heavy and make everything much more complicated. It's just overcomplicating things. You don't want to do that. And while we were perfecting our lighting setup and making sure that the makeup on our catwalk models was absolutely immaculate, our competitors had launched 140 new ad concepts and found 13 new winning angles that they could reiterate on pretty much forever. So here's the harsh reality. In today's e-com landscape, while you're planning the perfect monthly shoot, your competitors are pumping out new tests and squeezing proven winners at scale. So the silver lining is that these costly mistakes led us to discover something that completely changed our approach to content creation. And this is why the winning creative system has a North Star. And that North Star is our content hub. Think of it as the engine that keeps feeding new performing content into our creative department. Notice that I said performing, not high quality or not Hollywood level. This distinction cost us thousands of dollars to learn. But anyways, this is the Content Hub. And this is what I'm gonna show you how to do in this video. So the Content Hub includes different categories of content. You want to imagine your Content Hub as it was. Do you know Envato, Shutterstock, or Storyblocks? These are stock footage libraries, right? So you want to type something and you find a bunch of scenes, a bunch of footage that you can use, and it's all about what you typed. Now you want to recreate the same stock footage library for your own brand. So you want to create your branded stock footage library that your creative strategists, your video editors, your graphic designers can go to every time they have a new idea. This shrinks the amount of time needed to create a new concept by tenfold at least, probably even more. And one thing you want to do is want to categorize all of the content in your Content Hub and tag it so that you make their life much easier. Now, depending on the industry you're working in and depending on the type of content you're shooting, you will have different categories. The most common ones are the following. The first one is product in use and lifestyle shots. Then you have animations and graphics. These are very popular in the medical device space, in the supplement niche. Then you have the talking heads, so the scripted and skits scenes. Then you have the listing shootings and high-end productions, which they still have a role, they still have a space in our Content Hub, but they cannot be the only type of content we're shooting. Then you have B-roll and product demonstrations. You have UGC and testimonials. You have problems, solutions, and benefits scenes. Then you have product development and behind the scenes, which is something that can really help your creative strategists add more trust and authority to your product. And then you have localized content. This is something you usually start shooting once you want to take your brand to the globe. You want to scale it globally. And it's something really interesting that we're going to dive into later on. Now, how do we shoot this content? How do we keep our content hub fed and constantly updated in the most efficient way? There are 7 ways we use to maintain our content hub updated. The first one is self-tapes. So this is where we get people from the outside, people who are incredibly relatable to the target audience we want to attack, we want to target, we want to promote our product to, and we want to get them a brief, and we want to, I'll show you in a second how we do it, but we want to remotely direct them to make sure that the content we get is the best we can get. Then you have self-directed videographers. These are videographers we hire, we ship our products to, and the self-directed videographers are basically on the line, on demand, always ready to shoot new content for us. So our creative team comes up with a new idea, we send the brief to the self-directed videographer, and they start shooting right away. These are usually product-centered scenes. And if we need a product-centered scene with a talent who can speak, who can talk on camera, then we will find talents to join our self-directed videographer. In a second, I will show you how we manage specifically the self-tape content, which is here, the self-directed videographer, and the self-directed plus talent. But then in the meantime, let me show you 4 more ways to shoot content. We have the studios. The studios are basically the expensive stuff. This is where you can spend a lot of money, but this is also where you can double down on a very specific concept, a very specific angle that you know exactly how much money is gonna bring to your pocket. Then you have TikTok shops. TikTok shops are very interesting. This is where you can basically get lots of affiliates to create content for you. You can take that content, launch it as ad, and see what sticks, see what resonates the most with your audience. Then you have creators. These are the creators you can reach out to. These are usually people who are already creating content online. They have around 1 to 5 to 10K followers, and you want to ask them to simply create content for you in exchange for your product. You see which one is the best one, and then you hire the best one on a monthly agreement. You tell them you can create up to this amount of videos, and I'm gonna pay you this exact amount of dollars. And then finally, you have archive.com. Archive.com is something that we've been using lately quite a lot for some of our clients, and this is where you can find people who are already creating the type of content you're looking for. So this is another very interesting SOP we recently added to our content hub. Now, what type of content can you shoot, and what is the type of content we shoot with all these 7 methods? We have 3 main types of content. The first one is the script-centered content, where the script is basically the main character of our ad. Then you have the product-centered scenes and the talent-centered scenes. Now, let's go through real quick the first 3 methods I told you. So the first one is the self-tapes. Self-tapes is probably one of the most popular, and if you ask me, is probably my favorite, because it's fast, because it's straight to the point, and because it's incredibly relatable to our audience. We want to make sure that the person on the other side of the screen thinks this brand understands my problem, understands me, understands everything I'm going through every single day to the T. How do they do it? And most of the time, the way we do it is simply using their own language and showing on the ad somebody that looks like them. As simple as that. Anyways, in order to do a great hire for the self-tape and create incredible self-taped content, first of all, we need to clarify who is our target audience. If it's not clear, we want to ask our creative strategist and media buyer who we are trying to target with that specific ad. If it's clear, we want to make sure we have the specifics for the shooting ready. If not, again, we go back to creative strategist, and we want to follow the brief SOPs that we share with our licensing partners at the Winning Creative System. And when that's ready, we want to make the talent requirements incredibly clear. Once they're clear, we want to pick the method to find our self-tape creators. We have, again, inbound and outbound. Inbound is by far my favorite. Now, the best platform we found to do inbound for self-tapes is Backstage.com. Backstage.com is my favorite by far, and it's probably the best platform when it comes to finding a specific actor. You can find doctors, you can find estheticians, you can find overweight people, you can find people who are incredibly skinny, people who are incredibly tall, people with kids, people with grandkids, people who are in their 60s, in their 20s. It's absolutely insane, the amount of people you can find in these platforms, and I would highly recommend you check it out. This is pretty much our secret weapon. So here it is for free to you. Then you have more platforms like castingnetworks.com, Billo, and Influi. Then you have the outbound methods, which are TikTok, Instagram, and X. Most of the time, you have more, obviously. For example, the Canva sites are something that we're using quite a lot lately, and we're sharing with our licensing partners. But it's by far the inbound method, my favorite. Now, in both cases, you want to create the job campaign, and you want to either reach out to the people via DM or create the job post. In both cases, you want to make sure you include all these 9 points, which are the talent requirements, the equipment needed, the e-commerce experience, the expected compensation for the brief, the duration of the shot, the location, the brand guidelines, the brief summary, and the post-shooting instructions. And you also want to add the audition details. Now, auditions are not always needed, are not always compulsory, but just like we did with the interview process, I like talking to people. I like making sure that I'm hiring somebody who's good. Even if it's just one audition, I would highly recommend you do it. But anyways, once you get enough people, you want to shortlist the best candidate and you want to run your remote audition. You want to assess for punctuality, for delivery skills on camera, for communication skills, and for the overall experience of working with this person. Ideally, you want to find candidates and self-tape creators that you're going to hire again and again and again. If you find somebody who actually resonates with your target audience, you want to hire them again. And it's interesting when you see a little bit of a storyline when you have first some ads and then you change the script and you see the same person creating different ads, and it's almost like your audience gets used to that person in a way, and I really like that effect. But anyways, once you run the remote audition, you want to get your creative strategist to pick the best auditionee. And you want to also create a database with all of the other good ones. Then you want to get them to sign up the contract. If there are bottlenecks, you want to discuss them, see if they're negotiable. If they're non-negotiable, you want to just pick another auditionee, as easy as that. If they're negotiable, you want to move forward, meet them in the middle, and ship the product, send the brief, and block out a shooting date. Now, very important, this is probably the most important thing that really changed the way we shoot self-tape content, is hopping on a pre-production call with the talent and the creative strategist. And in this call, you want to assess the overall logistics, if the product was delivered, the shooting location, the shooting equipment, the lights quality. You want to make sure the creator is shooting in the best light possible in the room. You want to make sure that the room is tidy, is clean. You don't want to have a lot of things all around. And you want to make sure the talent has read the brief. You want to make sure the talent has read your UGC guidelines for your brand. You want to make sure the talent understands the purpose behind each and every one of the scenes on the brief. And you want to tell them more about the post-shooting process. In our case, it's very simple, but we'll get there in a second. Then the shooting day comes. And in the shooting day, you want to text your creator in the morning, hype them up a little bit, and then tell them you're available. If there's any problem, if there's any doubt, just call me or call the creative strategist, call somebody. But let us know if there's a problem. We don't want to reshoot this. And you send up a contract. In the contract, the content you're delivering must be approved. Make sure that you don't have any doubts. If you have doubts, just reach out to us. We'll be here, we'll be available, and we'll be more than happy to help you. Then after the shooting, the talent uploads all the content in your MAM. MAM stands for Media Asset Management, if I'm not wrong. But the one we use is Iconic, and that's probably the best one. You have many other options, but this is probably my favorite one. And the important thing is that you mandate them to upload everything within the next day from the shooting. And this is something that we implemented recently, but it's very important because it's kind of a small thing to do, but it takes time. And if you don't make it mandatory for them to upload everything within the next day, they're going to forget, they're going to postpone, and it's just not going to be a deal. So this is something you want to avoid, and you want to make sure that they upload everything within the next day. Now, the second type of content we shoot is the one with the self-directed videographer. Now, the self-directed videographer is probably one of the most important ones, if you ask me, because it gives you speed. Once you find the right go-to self-directed videographer, you are buying speed at scale. You are buying the opportunity to come up with an angle today and launch it tomorrow, literally. So this is really a superpower if you're building your in-house creative department. Now, as usual, you want to have the shooting specifics ready. In this case, you want to make sure you have the shooting specifics that are the most common across the year. If you don't have those, you ask your creative strategist when they're ready. You want to make sure that the videographer requirements are clear. If not, again, ask your creative strategist and make sure that everything is clear. Then you pick your method. As regards this, you again have inbound and outbound at your disposal. I still like inbound, and I still like LinkedIn ads. I think LinkedIn ads in the e-com space is probably one of the least used the right way. And we found a lot of very good self-directed videographers through LinkedIn ads. And we have different self-directed videographers for different niches, and we found pretty much all of them through LinkedIn. And then the outbound options are, as usual, TikTok, Instagram, X, and in this case also Upwork. Now, once you decide what you want to go for, you want to again either create a job campaign or a DM outreach, a DM message in a DM template to send and to reach out to the people. And you want to include all these 10 voices plus the hiring process details. Now, the first one is requirements, e-com experience, equipment needed, casting capacity, budget range per shooting, expected schedule, location requirements, brand guidelines, brief structure, post-shooting instructions, and then the, again, hiring process details. Once you get enough volume, you want to shortlist the best candidates. Then you interview. Again, I like interviewing people. You want to make sure you interview people, even if they're creators, just to make sure that you can assess punctuality, problem-solving skills, communication, and overall experience. You have then the CEO and the creative strategist to pick the best videographers. CEO in this case is very broad and loose as a term. Usually it's the founder, but it depends on how big you are. Depending on how big you are, it can be the head of content, the creative strategist, the head of performance, the head of growth, the CMO. It doesn't really change. It doesn't really matter as long as the creative strategist has also their own direct report on the call to make sure you can pick the best videographer. And then you create a database with all of the other good ones, the ones that you're not hiring, but that could have been a good fit. Then you send the contract as usual. You discuss the bottlenecks, if any, you see if it's a non-negotiable or negotiable, yada, yada. And then you ship the product, you send the trial brief, you fix and you book the shooting date. Then again, pre-production call with a creative strategist where you assess the overall logistics, the product, if the product got delivered, the location cleanliness in general, the lights quality, if the videographer has read the brief, if the videographer has read the brand guidelines, if they understand the purpose behind each scene and if the post-shooting process is clear. Then the shooting day comes, again in the morning, you text the videographer and you hype them up and tell them that you're available. And within the next day, you get them to deliver and upload the content on your MAM. Now, are you happy with the delivery? If yes, you found your go-to videographer. Congrats, this is a great step. If not, then you want to understand if it's something teachable. If not, you want to go back to your database and test out another one. If yes, you want to prepare a detailed feedback and make sure they learn from it. In this case, they're not really an employee. They're more freelance that work with you on demand. So the PIP wouldn't really apply in this case, but just make sure you take your time to deliver your detailed feedback and make sure they understand what you didn't like and what they could do better. Now, the third type of content we're going to discuss here is a mix of the previous two, of the last two. So you have the self-directed videographer and the talent. Now, this is a mix of the two where you need good content and you also need people to talk on camera. When did we learn this? We had a campaign that included a script that included a mother and a daughter. Now, these two, the first time, shot the video themselves as a self-tape creators, and that was amazing. It was good, but it was good enough to get a taste of how good this ad would have performed if we had a good videographer shooting the content. The difference is that, especially if you're shooting with more than one person, it's really a mess to have a self-tape with two people on camera. It's very hard. And then when two people communicate, you want to get a videographer who really understands how to highlight the right things and the things that really would get people to buy your product. Now, how do we do this? Again, we want to get the target audience, the shooting specifics, the talent requirements ready and clear. Once we have those, we have two types of casting that we need to do. The casting is obviously just for the talent. We already have the self-directed videographer. So the casting can be either ran by us internally or by the self-directed videographer. If we do it internally, again, we have backstage.com and castingnetworks.com. Backstage, my favorite, Casting Networks, good. In this case, you create a job post. If you want the videographer to do their own casting, again, if you remember, we asked here if they had casting capacity. So if they told us they do, then it's perfect. And they will go through their personal network, most likely. And if they're videographers, they do know people in their area and they do know people who are happy to be on camera. And then we let them outreach to these people. Now, to reach out to these people. Now, in both the DM and the job campaign, we want to include the talent requirements, the equipment needed, the e-commerce experience, the expected compensation for the shooting, the duration of the shoot, the location, the brand guidelines, the brief summary, the post-shooting instructions, and the audition details. Now, the cool thing when it comes to this type of shooting is that physical auditions are available. Most of the time, this is a mess, and most of the time, it's kind of overkill. But if it's a big campaign, then you definitely want to make sure you can you do the physical audition. The physical audition in this case is an option because the videographer and the talent are going to have to live in the same location or at least be very close. In this case, if you do the physical location, we did it like a few times and it was very successful. You want to include the professionalism. You want to assess the professionalism, the delivery skills, the communication, and the overall experience. Now, once you go through the audition, whether it is remote or physical, you want the creative strategist and the self-directed videographer to pick the best auditionee. And then you want to create a database with all the good ones for the next shootings. Now, we get them to sign up the contract. We make sure that the product is available. And this is one of the best things of working with videographers. You ship the product only once and they can work with different people and different talents. Then you send the brief, you book a shooting date. You have a pre-production call with creative strategist, self-directed videographer, and the talent. Then the shooting day comes, you text them in the morning, you hype them up. We usually have either a group or a WhatsApp group to make sure that they start bonding, they start talking to each other, and like we are aware of all of the logistics talk in the background. And we make sure that the self-directed videographer uploads everything on our MAM within the next day. Once that's done, once that's uploaded, done. Nice job. So this is it for the content input. And now we are left with the data input. Now, the third and final variable that we need to nail down as part of the inputs is data. This is the element that transforms good creative departments into great ones. And as usual, we learned it the hard way. One of our earliest licensing partners had an incredible creative team and a massive content library. Yet their ads kept underperforming, and the reason became clear. Without proper data guiding their decisions, they were essentially throwing darts in the dark. And the reality of creative production in 2025 is that you need all three inputs working in harmony. The best talent won't save you without data-driven decisions. The highest quality content won't convert without data-backed decisions. Each piece reinforces the others. And when it comes to data, we break data into three distinct categories. We have internal, derived, and external data. And this is what nobody in the industry talks about. When it comes to data, accuracy matters more than volume. It doesn't really matter if you had terabytes of data at your disposal. If it's not accurate, if you can't trust the data, it's trash. It's literally trash. You can't use it. So internal data sits at the top of our accuracy pyramid. And this is when your attribution is solid. This type of data can get as close as possible to 100% accuracy. And the only trade-off is that it's limited. Relying exclusively on internal data makes innovation difficult, and you're optimizing what exists rather than discovering what's possible. And this is probably what's happening in your brand if you're lacking innovation. If your team exclusively focuses on internal data, it's going to be very hard to find innovation. But it's not going to be hard if you also use derived data. And derived data bridges the gap between internal and external. It's our system for making educated guesses at scale. One beauty brand used derived data to predict which product features would resonate most with their audience, and that led their next campaign to get 3x more sales than average. And is this always the case with derived data? Unfortunately, not, because sometimes you get things wrong. But this is a good thing. It is a good thing to have a system to make educated guesses at scale, because this fosters innovation and helps your creative department find new concepts and ideas. Finally, we have external data. External data offers the widest variety with the lowest accuracy. This is where you can watch your competitors spark creative ideas, but you don't really know if those are working, or if it's just a test for your competitors as well. And if you're copying the wrong thing, you are gonna end up losing a lot of money. So it's risky and you don't wanna do that. The key isn't accepting and choosing and committing to just one type of data, but having like a system to blend all the three. And let me show you exactly how each type fits into your creative decision-making process. Look, this is how we manage data at 99 Ads and also with our licensing partners. We have three types, again, internal, derived, external. Let's start with external, which is this one. And make sure you understand it's 40% accurate. So everything you find here, it's kind of a wild guess. It's not an educated guess, but your wild guess can be that this specific thing might work for your own branding, your own ads. And there are 6 main categories of external data we take into account. First one is economy, cultural moments, and memes. Then you have spy tools, social listening, consumer reviews, indirect competitors' ads, and direct competitors' ads. The difference between direct and indirect is that direct competitors are the ones selling exactly the same product as you are, and then indirect competitors are those who are selling a different product to the same audience. Now, if you want a breakdown of all of these, again, I highly recommend you download this case study. You can find everything here. And in the meantime, I will move on to the derived data, which is the next one. This is more of an educated guess. This usually has 70% accuracy. And these numbers, 40%, 70%, are like you don't really want to pay too much attention because this is something internal for us. However, if you ask me, do you get 4 out of 10 wild guess correct? I would say so. Would you get 7 out of 10 educated guesses corrected? I would say so. I would say it's an option. It's possible. And in this case, the type of content we're looking at is customer insights, conversion drivers, creative attraction insights, audience engagement trends, competitive analysis, and seasonal and trends insights. This is the derived data. And again, if you want to find the breakdown of each one of those voices, you can find it here in the case study. Finally, we have internal data. And this is where we excel as a company and we make our licensing partners excel. It's where we basically make the most of all of the content we get and we pay for when we're running ads. One thing that most people don't really understand is that when you're running ads, you're literally purchasing and buying data from those big social media platforms. So one thing is getting clients and it's great, but the other thing you're buying for when you're not getting sales is the data. And you want to make sure you use that data as much as you can. You squeeze that data as a lemon and you build up on what's working week after week. And the way you do it is with the 6 types of data, these 6 ways of collecting data. So we use the learnings agenda, we use the creative intelligence, we use the store data, we use the customer support surveys, we use the third-party apps, and we use our own winning elements. Here, these are spreadsheets that our licensing partners get, but it's also something that you can dive into on the case study. Again, I would highly recommend you go through the entire case study and read everything in it because it's incredibly useful and incredibly important to have some sort of a proven system if you want to build your own in-house creative team. Now, if you watched the video up until now, what is next? Why am I sharing all this with you and why I'm giving you the opportunity to build your own in-house creative department? Look, by now you've seen and you've understood how a systematized creative department can change the trajectory of any e-com brand on earth. But what you've seen in this video is just the foundation, and it's not secret. Nowadays, it's all about ad creatives. When I started 99 Ads, I was the one pushing the idea of it's all about ad creatives. Trust me, you don't have to target on your ad account anymore. It's all about ad creatives. And people used to give me a lot of pushback. Now it's obvious. Now it's all about creatives. And you can hear everybody saying it's all about creatives. So the success of any DTC brand hinges on its ad game. And we've all seen, if you're in the e-com space, we have all seen average products, really average, sometimes mediocre products, turning into 9-figure behemoths purely through creative excellence. And if you're watching this video and you've spent more than an hour watching this video, I know for a fact that you've already built an exceptional product. And the painful truth is that it's not enough anymore. in 2025, having an exceptional product is not enough if you want big scale and fast scale. Every week, we all see brilliant products lose market share to average competitors with superior ad creatives. And nothing hurts me more than watching passionate entrepreneurs, people who've poured their lives into creating the best possible product, get outmaneuvered by mercenaries who simply have better ads. So, if your e-commerce store makes more than 1 million a year, which is like kind of a low bar, if you ask me, this is the inflection point. This is where building your in-house creative department becomes not only a possibility, but becomes necessary to keep growing. And it's going to become even more necessary moving forward and as 2025 evolves. In this document, we've covered the foundations, how to get the most from people, content, and data. But these are just the inputs of a successful creative system. What separates the best creative departments from the struggling ones is how people, content, and data interact with each other and how they interact with the rest of the system. So the process, the output, and the feedback. And the feedback loop is what gives you those consistent results. The feedback loop is what allows you to make sure that every week your output is pretty much stable. It's pretty much a guarantee, and you can constantly rely on this system to churn out new ads every single week. Now, the hard part of having an in-house creative department is that you're building, managing, and scaling that while you're also ramping up your ads. And that's very hard to do if you don't have a proven system and you don't have a team of veterans who've done this many times to help you each step of the way. And this is exactly what we help our licensing partners with. And we help them master this entire system within just 6 weeks, without spending tens of thousands of dollars on agency fees, without compromising on quality, without losing control of their creative assets, without being held hostage by agencies, without paying extra commissions, all while building a valuable asset for their future exit. Building a top-notch creative department, in fact, pays you off twice. The first time is immediately, because right away you reduce your cost per winner, CPW, and you can simply outperform all your competitors and win their customers, which is pretty compelling if you ask me. And then in the long term, when you exit, because a company with a strong in-house creative department commands premium multiples compared to agency-dependent brands. And this is why the biggest e-com companies run their own in-house creative teams. It's why every serious player in the space is moving in the same direction. And this is why I want to help you build, run, and scale your own in-house creative department. If you know me and you know 99 Ads, our mission is to become a household name in advertising. And as a company that lives and breathes prediction, we see it clearly. Every e-commerce store that wants to truly compete must build a killer in-house creative department. And our three-phase licensing program replicates our entire system in-house within just 16 weeks. Let me show you how. We call the phase 1 install, and this is where we build your foundations. We start with your most valuable asset, which is people. And this is not just any people. This is the right people in the right seats with the right tools to succeed. You already have a team, then we'll optimize your existing team. We will make sure that you have the right people, that they are on the right seats, and that they have the right tools to succeed. If you don't have a team, we will help you build your own dream in-house team. And we will hand you our complete hiring arsenal. So role-specific scorecards refined through 40 plus in-house team builds, assessment tests, interview frameworks, onboarding systems, pretty much all the SOPs I showed you in the creative system I showed you earlier in the video. Then we will architect your content hub. And this isn't just organizing files. This is about building a system that turns your creative strategists and video editors into content multiplication machines. This is the same content library that helps us produce over 2,500 new ads per month, every single month. And this is going to become your own competitive advantage. And then finally, we install our data tracking infrastructure. This is the same system we use at 99 Ads to make quick, profitable decisions. And this is going to become part of your team's arsenal. No more guesswork, no more costly mistake, just data-driven decisions that drive results. And when these outputs are humming in perfect harmony, that's when the real magic begins in phase 2. Phase 2, manage. This is where we turn inputs into winners. Building a creative department is one thing. Running a creative department is more complex than most people realize. And a client once told me, building our creative department was the easy part. Running it nearly broke us. Their team had talents, tools, drive, but after 3 months of missed deadlines and internal chaos, they were close to reverting to agency work. And this is what happens most of the time. Most e-com brands, they decide to go in-house, they start hiring people, they don't know how to manage them, there's no process in place, there's no workflow, and simply after a couple of months, they have to go back to the agency and beg for them to take them on again. In the same client, after 3 weeks of implementing our management system, hit the delivery targets for the first time ever. And this is what we learned through years of delivering thousands of ads monthly. A great system is only as good as the team's ability to execute consistently. Day after day, week after week, month after month. One thing is putting everything together. Another thing is putting a process in place that people follow and complete every single day. The tricky part of having your own in-house team is that there are so many micro deadlines every week and everything has to fall into place perfectly. If one thing falls off, then the rest of the team will be wasting their time, or worse, working on the wrong things. And this is exactly where our process comes in. After building over 40 creative teams, we've mapped every failure point, solved every bottleneck, and built systems that simply work. A delivery framework so robust that even team member changes won't disrupt your output. And we don't just hand you a process manual and disappear. As a licensing partner, you get our entire system plus hands-on support in making it yours. This is going to be basically replicating our agency in-house. So you have a successful agency that's spending hundreds of millions of dollars per year, literally in your team, working full-time to create ads for your own brand, to grow your own brand, which is pretty impressive. And we will be working directly with your team to install weekly delivery frameworks that prevents any missed deadline. Create clear hands-off protocols between every role. Build quality control systems that catch issues early. Establish communication cycles that keep everyone in check. And set up performance tracking that drives accountability. Whether it is briefing videographers or graphic designers, whether it is putting together your growth hypothesis for the trimester and understanding what are the high impact levers that you can pull, we got you covered. This is probably the sickest offer we ever put together. And I'm incredibly happy to offer it to you if you watched it, if you watched this video till now. One e-com brand we worked with as a license partner went from struggling to produce 10 ads per month to consistently, over the past 6 months, deliver 30 plus high quality creatives every single week. That's 12 times more than before. And the difference was not the people or the resources. They had the same people and the same resources, but they just had a better system and a better process. And then finally, the phase 2 concludes once your creative department achieves what most think impossible: predictable, consistent output of winning ads. No more missed deadlines, no more quality issues, just a smooth running creative machine that delivers results with absolute certainty. Finally, phase 3, scale. This is where we go from a solid machine to a market leader. There's a moment every e-commerce brand dreams of. Your creative department is finally running smoothly, delivering consistent winners. But that is not the finish line. This is where the real growth begins, because one thing is getting there and one thing is staying there. If you start stagnating, you die. So most brands hit a ceiling here because they've built something that works, finally, and they want to play it safe. They want to chill. They just want to relax and stabilize, as they call it. But we take you in the opposite direction. We give you controlled strategic expansion that turns good performance into market dominance. And we're not just throwing ideas from the sidelines. We're not theorists. Because while we are helping you scale, we are also actively creating ads for hundreds of thousands of daily ad spend across our portfolio. And last year alone, we spent over $180 million through our ads. And when we recommend a strategy, it is not because we think it might work. It's because we proved it works, often the same week, with our own resources for some of the biggest stores in the game. And we're going to adapt this to you because scaling takes different forms for different brands. It might be building a larger creative team without diluting the quality. It might be breaking into new audiences with precision targeted content. It might be expanding into new regions with culturally tuned campaigns. It might be testing innovative angles while maintaining consistent performance, or it might be multiplying output while elevating the creative standards. But here's what makes us different. Every day we're testing and optimizing across our 100 million client portfolio. When a new approach works, you know about it immediately. We are on the field, skin in the game, right by your side. When a platform shifts threatens performance, you are already prepared before it hits. When we crack a more efficient production method, it's in your hands the next day. And think about what this means. While your competitors scramble to adapt to each platform change, you are already executing the solution. In this day and age, the gap between good and great creative departments isn't just about talents and systems. It's about the adaptation speed. Having a 9-figure veteran team by your side means turning every market shift into an opportunity for growth. And this isn't about just following a rigid system. This is about building one that evolves faster than the market, because in today's advertising world, the fastest learner wins. So, I want to become a licensing partner. How do I do it? Now you've seen what the creative system is, how it works. Let me be crystal clear about what it isn't. This isn't an online course teaching theory. This is the exact system we use today to manage 9 figures in ad spend across some of the biggest e-commerce brands in the market. And we support you through the entire implementation. And it's definitely not a one-size-fits-all solution. We work exclusively with e-commerce brands because that's where we've proven our systems work. We don't pretend to solve everyone's problem. We solve one problem better than anybody else. Building, running, and scaling high-performing creative departments for e-commerce brands. And most importantly, this is not for every e-commerce store. A powerful creative department is a dangerous thing, and it's a competitive advantage. So we're very selective about who we work with. And before we move forward, we need to confirm 2 things. The first one is that you qualify for our program. And the second one is that we believe in your product, in your mission, and most importantly, in your intentions. This is crucial for us. We don't want to put this machine on the wrong hands. We just want to make sure we're helping the right people promote their product so that they can help more people. We don't want to help anybody scam anybody. So if this sounds like you and you're ready, you're serious about growing your e-commerce business, and by now it's clear that building your own creative department is mandatory to get to the next level, I would like to formally invite you to book a call with our team. You can simply click here, or you have the link in the description box. And please be aware, this is not going to be the classic salesy and pushy sales call. We're going to discuss your current creative challenges, how our system adapts to your specific needs, the exact implementation timeline, and what is your investment and expected return. Important, we only onboard 10 clients per month, and this number might go down in the future. We're still opening this up to the public. And it's not artificial scarcity. It's a strict limit we maintain to ensure every partner gets the attention and support needed to succeed. Our current wait list is 30 to 45 days, and it's going to get longer now that we are publicly letting people know about our licensing program. We've been running it for 12 months now, and this was something we were doing under the radar, but now it's going to go public and we're going to start advertising it. So we're going to make sure that we onboard only people who are selected and we are sure we can help do good and do more positive in the world. So why do we limit our intake? Because unlike most online programs that scale through automation, we scale through excellence. And each partner gets direct access to our team of experts, custom implementation support, regular strategy sessions, and priority troubleshooting. If you're serious, once again, about building your creative department that delivers consistent winners and makes your advertising results finally stable and sustainable, do yourself a favor and book a call right now. We'll review your business before the call so we can dive straight into how we'll help you implement the creative system. To be candid, the longer you wait, the longer you'll stay dependent on agencies or you'll keep struggling with inconsistent creative production. Every month of delay is another month of missed opportunity and wasted ad spend. So, once again, do yourself a favor, book your call now, and let's discuss transforming your creative department into a predictable creative system. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you are not there yet, if you haven't hit 1 million per year yet in revenue, make sure you use and implement everything I showed you here in this video yourself. You can do it for free. It's maybe gonna take a little longer, but you can definitely do it for free. Let me know if you have any questions in the comment section. And again, I'll see you in the licensing partner program. Cheers.